Affinity 3 comes with a new feature of an adjustment brush. It applies adjustments to a particular very limited area of your image. You can apply it in different ways, but it's using the brush features. And this is for PC and Mac. Super easy to use. Let's just get it into the video. So where's the tool? Well, it's over here, adjustment brush. Of course, you can customize your various tools, but here is the adjustment brush, and you can apply a self-masking adjustment by painting. That's what it says. There's also a few options here you can see there, drag to. I will go through those in this video as well. So the first thing to do, let's just apply. And I've just got down here this context toolbar, and I'm just going to click with the current adjustment brush and apply. And you can see you get an adjustment just in that localized area. What happens? This pops up as well, the adjustment itself, the black and white adjustment. So you can modify the settings. So you can just change it, and you can change it here, yellow, and you can modify cyan and all those sort of things. Just change it there. But the key thing is you can use this down the bottom. So how does this work? So let's just click here and go down here. This context toolbar you can find in the view menu, and just down here to context toolbar and show. And it's got all the adjustments. So let's just undo that. Don't want that. How to actually get black and white? Well, with the adjustment tool selected, just go down here and you've got all of the adjustments that you can access. Exposure, levels, etc. Black and white is one of them. Maybe I'll go with a different one. So maybe gradient map. So I can select gradient map. And with that, I can now apply the brush stroke, and it will use this setting. You can vary the setting, the size. You can also set various things such as the here, opacity, and also the flow, all those sort of things, as well as click here more to modify the brush. You've got all the different brush settings. You can change dynamic, etc., which we will go through as well. So once you've got that, you can apply it, and it will firstly apply the one you've selected here, gradient map. Now there's no presets at the side of that. It'd be a really nice feature if it did, but you'll notice over here I have actually got the adjustments panel, and that's useful as well. So that's the next thing you can use just to modify it. But let's just apply. So gradient map, it will apply now, and there it's applied. This panel pops up, which slightly always gets in the way. I think it'd be nice if it's a bit further away, but still what it also does, it generates this gradient map adjustment just over here, and you can then see the little mask. Now it does it in a slightly unusual way, and I've noticed some videos people have mentioned this, that it would have been nice if they just done it with the usual approach for masks, but instead they've got it here now. Slightly odd. I mean, you can still work with it, but it would be nice to be able to manipulate it further in different ways as well. But it's just stuck here. But still, you can see the mask there. And also, it tells you what it is. Obviously, in this case, this one's a great, I'll check quickly, gradient map. It's a gradient map. It's applied. And you can also, when I first saw this, I wondered, what's this little squiggle here? There's a little lightning bolt, it looks like, or zigzag. Well, if you just click on there, it shows you the brush. So you can go back and forth to select it, which I think is quite a useful feature. So if you use 3 or 4 different brushes, you will see a little menu of 3 or 4 brushes that you can then select from there. And let's just close that now. Now, these here, you got here gradient map. While I'm just applying, say, gradient map, I can continue to apply it. It will just, this pops up again. Slightly disconcerting, actually, every time it pops up once you clear it away. But you'll notice when you apply it again, if you keep applying it, it doesn't add an additional gradient map layer, which is really useful because that would be really annoying. But you're thinking, well, what if I want to add another layer that's a gradient map? Well, you can. You can just click here, add adjustment. That's what that is. I must admit, at first, I wasn't really sure what it was there for, why there's any point to it. And personally, I think they should have maybe just had an option down here, a little menu option, because I don't know why I'd want it too often. It just seems to be slightly in the way. But if I click it, let's just click it now, add adjustment. And you can see what it does. It adds, obviously, what I've got here, gradient map. It just adds that. I haven't applied any brush because I wouldn't be able to get that otherwise. other than just duplicating it, obviously manually. But you can do this add adjustment. So it adds it again. If I click it again, let's just click it again. You can see then I get multiple adjustments, all using this gradient map. So if I go here and go with, say, curves, add adjustment, it will just add an adjustment one, that one there, the curves one, and so on. So let's just go back now. I just want to show you what that add adjustment does. So let's just delete all those and just go back to your gradient map here. And you can apply this gradient map. Now, confusingly, what's happened here, I've got curves. Because I've got curves here. As soon as I start to draw with it, it will create a new adjustment. That's a slight, but you can delete it. So let's just delete that again and just make certain you put it back to gradient map. Now, if it works properly, because I'm on a gradient map, I'm in gradient map here, I should be able to continue to apply and it shouldn't add another layer. And luckily it doesn't. I did notice a few quirks with this when I was using it first time. I thought, oh, very strange. However, you can also modify it over here. So you can change the settings here. So you can see as you change it here, you can do all the standard things you can with adjustments. You can modify different things here, the colors. So you can just change that. You can see you can create some interesting visual effects using this. And you can merge, insert, all those sort of things just as you normally would. You can also change the blend mode. So say you've got normal here, and you'll notice down here I've got normal. And that's what it uses when you first apply it. You've got the gradient map and normal. That's what it will set to based on that result there. So with that, it will create normal. But you can, if you decide, you know what, I don't want normal, realise once I've started to edit, I wanted something else. You can put it dark and multiply lighten, but it's still using gradient map, still going through it, but you can go say difference. So you've got difference there. And now you'll notice also over here it changes. So you've got this one, this layer that's selected becomes difference as well. And now when I continue to apply brush stroke, it still pops up. You can't get rid of it. It's going to keep coming back. And you can see then you can very rapidly just apply again your gradient map thing. Now there is a certain point when you keep flying, it won't keep applying more and more and more. It just does exactly the same as a normal gradient map. There is a certain point it reaches and it will stop adding any more, and you've got your full-on gradient map. But you can apply it very lightly, and you see you got that. Obviously, it's not so intense as that. And again, once you're happy with that, you can close that. And as I said, if you don't want that layer, and I'm just going to remove it now, you can just simply go over here and you can delete it. You don't need to keep it. It's a layer that can be deleted. So just delete and it's back to this image. So any mistakes, whatever, have been removed super quick. So let's go with another one. Let's just go here for levels. So if I go to levels and I can apply levels to it, and perhaps it will not make that much difference because until I've actually changed the setting here. And this is one thing slightly with this, it is slightly odd that you apply your brush and you think, great, I can see something pop over here. Nothing seems to be changing because of course it's got its setting here. It's only when you start modifying here, you can see now, obviously I'm just going to make it extreme so you can actually see it, but you can tweak it and change it, RGB, all those sort of things, red and so on. You can just tweak. Let's make it less extreme. Let's go to master again and tweak that so it's a bit more extreme so you can see it. And you can see that. Okay, I've got something a bit more extreme there. That's what I wanted to do. That levels thing will be staying as you apply it. Now that's applied, whatever you apply when you apply the brush to this layer, that's the setting it will be used. So when I go over here, it's not going to be using something different. It's using exactly the same. If I created another layer, another adjustment with that levels, I could then set them independently. So they can be independent, which is super useful because you can combine them. And you don't have to have just levels. You can have obviously 5, 10 additional layers, as many as you want, and you can modify them all in that way. Now, one thing you can see here, which I just mentioned, that it starts in an odd setting. So you might be not what you think it's going to be, but you can use this panel. the adjustment panel. So adjustment panel is great because you've got all the adjustments and you can add your own adjustments. You'll notice there's an add preset. You've created something really amazing. You've got a great adjustment you're really happy with. I don't think this is, but say you've got an adjustment you work with and you can add it. An add preset will add it over here. Any settings you've done here. And you can see up here, I've got levels. That's the one. So levels. I click there and you can see I've got that. So unless you, and I must admit, the manipulating all the various settings to get the particular colours, darken, raise, lighten, etc. Sometimes I think, ooh, how do I do exactly? So it's quick and easy to go to the adjustments, which you can find in a window. And they'll say, I always have to still look, pixel adjustment. There it is. It's in the pixel adjustment section. Because there's so many menus now with all these panels, it does mean you have to start remembering where they are. So increase gamma, you can just click that. And now you can see as you do that, it changes there. And there's a fair, well, it's not that many, but there's a few. So levels, you've got down decrease gamma. And you can see that will modify the settings over here. So even though you've got no presets over here, you've got no presets down here, you still got these presets accessible via the adjustment panel, so you can change them if you want. Now, you'll notice one thing. Let's just close this. If I go down here and I go, oh, because I've made a mistake and I suddenly think, I just click on one of these instead. Well, you can see what happens. It just adds an adjustment layer. That's what the result of that, which maybe is not what you want. But I just wanted to quickly show you that that is what happens if you just accidentally click something else that you really is not the one you're currently using, the preset that is. So let's just remove that. And I'm just going to remove that as well. Now the brushes that you're using are all the brushes that you've got in Affinity. Some may work better than others. If you've got a very oddball brush, that may be not very useful. So let's just go here again and let's just go for something else. Let's just go for HSL. HSL is a good one. And now, until you actually apply it, the panel doesn't pop up. I personally think it should pop up. Though I must admit, I'm always trying to get rid of it. But it would be nice that it actually appears. It only appears once you actually start applying. Maybe they could just brought it up. Personally, that would have been great. But in this part, I just want to show you, you can go and select any brush. You don't have to use just the brushes that you've got. So you've got here, let's just go for maybe just basic brushes. And you can see you've got all the brushes here. Anything here you can select. So round brush, as soon as you do that, you'll see you've got settings here, like that. Of course, you've got HSL. That's what it's going to create when you add that, apply that brush stroke. So let's just click and apply it. And you can see now this panel pops up. And again, of course, you've got the current setting. You've got a setting there, and you can modify that. And you can see then, as you modify it, you can see the color change. Obviously, that's not going to be, you might want to change the color of, say, obviously here, her jumper. So that's going to be quite a complex path, maybe without selection, etc. But you can apply it and you can see, and I'm using a mouse, so it's really not very nicely done, but you can see you could change it that way. Personally, that would be quite a slow way of doing it, I guess, but I'm just showing you can use adjustments in this way. And then, of course, you've got all the other settings. You can go change here, blend mode, etc., etc. So you can change the brush, and I'm just going to go and change the brush again. So let's just go for a different brush. So this time, maybe you want to spray and spatters, something like that. You can just go and say, some of these, I think, work nicely. Again, that appears. I always forget to not just keep closing it. You can then apply that, so you get a nice spray effect applied across there. Again, I'm just applying just to show you that you can change the brush, you can modify things, and that's the next thing you can do. You can modify this image as well, not just via brushes. So you've created this a bit of a mess, but you've created it. Well, what you can do, as long as you've got this layer selected over here, you can go to Pixel, and say you decide, oh, I don't want that way, I want it the other way. You can go to Pixel and you can go to Invert. So I'm just going to invert it now. So Invert. And now you can see it's gone. So you create, this is untouched, and this has been all modified. So the outside has been modified. And again, you can go back, of course, pixel and invert and do that. But also what you can do is you can go to pixel, you can go to filters, and you can go to blur. And now this is a destructive effect, so it's going to apply it. That's what you're going to get. So Gaussian blur, so let's Gaussian blur. And now you can see you've got a Gaussian blur, and you can then see, just modify that just slightly and click apply. And also, of course, you can then maybe modify it in other ways. Let's just go up here. I'm just going to go here to the paintbrush. Just use a paintbrush. And you can see the paintbrush applied just to that adjustment, not to the background, because if you do that, then you're going to be modifying the pixels of that actual image. But I'm just modifying this, so you can modify and add brush strokes. And of course, you can add, let's just find with something else. Let's go for another one, slightly more, maybe burn brush. No, let's go for smudge brush. That's always a good one. So smudge, you could actually apply some smudge effect, though it always seems to be quite slow. So you could modify other things with these settings, but probably you might want to go with pixels, and you could, let's go for a pretty more extreme one, distort and mirror. So mirror, you can see now what you get, number of mirrors, and you can then click apply, and you can see your adjustment has been modified. Now, when you apply the brush again, and you can go back to the brush, just go back here. And this is one of the things I find with this version. It is actually quite hard to find, there it is, adjustment brush. There's so many brushes you may like, and I've done a video on how to customize your tools. And adjustment brush, there's these three dots here. So if you want, you might want to move them around, because I find that set of brushes, if you use it a lot, you'll obviously get more familiar with it, that's what it looks like. But at the moment, I'm still sort of looking and thinking, oh, where is the brush? But it's that one. That's the adjustment brush. And now, of course, you can continue to apply your thing there. And you can apply it like that. But again, let's just remove it. I'm just going to delete it because I want to apply it again like that. And again, when obviously I apply it, now it just goes back to the start. Doesn't remember the last one, which is slightly, which I think would be nice, but it just goes back to the default. And let's just change that again. You can see then by just changing set, I've got it back to that. But you can, of course, use opacity, just put it down. So you want subtle changes. You might just put very subtle blue. You don't have to go full on maximum effect. You can just go subtle blue just to maybe recolor the hair, maybe untouch areas like that, maybe go over there, etc. So you can use opacity just to apply it, but still not apply it maximum strength, because you just don't want to, you don't need to do it always at 100%. So you want to clear it. You've applied your brush stroke and you applied it HSL and you think, I really don't want that. Well, to get rid of it, just use the fill tool. And go over here, because unfortunately, there's no command for fill. I don't know why they left it off, but they've got the fill tool. But fill tool, you got that. And now what you can do is you can apply a gradient. So let's just apply a gradient, which is great. Still using this adjustment, of course. But what you can do is, instead of obviously linear here, you can just go to solid. And then you've got that. Obviously there it's filled with white. Click there and you can fill it with obviously subtle grey, go through it and grey all the way down to black. And then it's cleared. And you've of course got you've still got the adjustment. You can still then continue to apply brush strokes to that again. You can still continue, go here. So let's just go again back to the adjustment tool. Here it is, adjustment brush, and then just continue to apply your brush strokes. And let's just change the setting there, not 100%. Now that's slightly the weird thing with this one. This one at the end, confusingly, if you change it to darken, it ignores. If you change it to this setting here, it will work and change. But this one, it won't. As you apply it, that doesn't change anything once you're starting to work with that layer. But these settings do. So you can change those, but not these ones. And you can see you can continue to apply, or maybe make it bigger and continue to apply. And again, at any point, you can always then go and clear it using the good old fill tool there. You can also use the adjustment brush with other objects. Now I'm just going to go over here and the rectangle tool. Of course, any other shape is also available as well, but I'm just going to go with the rectangle and click document, and you can then, let's just change it there, and I've got red. Maybe I could fill it with a gradient. So you can just go over here, gradient tool, the fill tool is called, and you can see linear here, you can see elliptical, and you can tweak the gradient. But we've got this design now. Well, you can apply the adjustment brush to this as well. So you've got this design. Again, go over here to the adjustment brush, and with that, you can just apply that, say HSL. So let's just, you've got this nice colourful red on one side, you want it to be something else. So you just apply it. And then you can see, then you get this over here, layer applied here, and you can then tweak this. So you change it, and you can see as you change it, changing the colour there. And of course, because I've got darken there, because that's what it was set to, that's the key thing, it will use whatever is set here. So it will, and it doesn't matter after it's done, you can't change it back to, you can change it obviously later, but you can't change it there. You just have to change it here. Just go blend mode normal. And you can see then I've got green at the side of that shape instead obviously of the default red of that gradient. And then of course I can tweak this, I can make it blue and tweak that backwards and forwards. Got this design, and again I've got over here, I can, with this layer selected, I can apply pixel effects, so filter, blur, and again Gaussian, so you can just blur it to create a nice texture design like that. Let's just push that down maybe to about 8 or 9 and click apply. So you can see you can apply that adjustment brush to that as well, and exactly the same as before with the image. You can also just simply go here to insert HSL. Let's just go with, say, a gradient map or some of the others, maybe invert. Let's go with invert and apply that. So then when I apply it, you can see the result of the invert adjustment. Now the result is odd the way it works. I would have thought it would have inverted the whole thing, but it doesn't. See, again, because I've got darken. No, let's undo. Let's just put it back, because I'm just going to keep selecting darken by accident. I don't mean to select darken. Normal, put it back to normal. I wondered why when I was applying it. I was thinking, that's strange, not inverting it. That doesn't make sense. It's inverting this side. Now you'll notice also when you hover over here, there's a little preview. Again, that's why I think it's slightly odd that they didn't bring up the panel, though there is no panel for invert. So now if I apply it, it's inverted it. Whew, does work properly. And also you can notice I can go over this side and it will invert the green obviously to purple. And obviously you can create that, and you've got obviously this one. I can go and select another one. So let's just go say to posterize, however you say it. And again, you can apply that, and you can see then you get that lovely effect again to a localized area. So I'm just applying it down the center, just creates all kinds of weird and wonderful visual effects just there, and untouched there, and close that now. So you can see it can be used with shape layers, which is really useful, but it can also be used with text as well. Actually, before I actually go on to text, another thing you can do, you can actually select the layers, of course, and you can move them around. That's one thing you can do. You can move them around, and you can also resize them, and you can also rotate them. So you can create some other things. I've completely forgot. You can transform them to create some very interesting visual effects. Okay, now on to text. I've created some slightly colourful text. The reason being, just makes it more obvious when you change the colours that if you've just got black text, there's probably not going to be a huge amount of adjustments particularly available. There obviously can be some, but not as much as if you create some nice colourful text like this. And you can see I've got a background colour, which I think is a real nice feature of Affinity 3. And also you've got, of course, strokes as well. So now let's just go again back to the adjustment brush. Here's the adjustment brush. And I'm just going to go with the setting here. And I'm not going to go with posterize or posterize. I'm just going to go with HSL. good old HSL. And I'm then just going to apply the brush stroke here. And I've got currently the splatter and spray brush. So just apply it. And you can see then it's applied like that. And then this panel pops up. And you can then modify the colour. And of course, I applied the brush stroke here. And I can then change it so you can get a lovely sort of speckled T letter there. But also, of course, let's go close that. Let's go down here, and again, you've got options here. Maybe go for black and white. You might want the E to become black and white. And also, I'm going to change the brush. So the brush is here, and there's a whole range of them. Oils, that's a nice one. So that one of the fibre brushes, fibre oil, and apply it. And you can see then you get the black and white effect. And you, of course, could go nicely and carefully around the letter shape there, instead of just applying it, but to create maybe a nice sort of line effect around that. And of course, you can undo and maybe select a different one. Let's just apply it. And you can see there I can create nice sort of round the edge like that. Just using that adjustment, the black and white one. And again, you get this layer pop up. And you can go to this one as well. Let's just go and select something else. So you can go for maybe brightness. Let's just apply that one. And now just apply it there. And you can see then maybe create some sort of rough lines around that. Maybe that X like that. And again, as soon as you finish, this pops up and you can then modify the brightness. So let's just change contrast, maybe that way, something like that. And then again, change blend mode. You might go for something, make it stand out even more. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Let's just go with that. And finally, the T. I can just change that and go with maybe threshold. So threshold, I can apply to that. And the result, you can create some very odd things like that. And maybe just change that. Something like that. Maybe not so effective when it's obviously such a solid design like a T like that. And close. So you can see that the adjustment brush can be applied very nicely to text as well. But of course, the text is still editable. Still editable text, so you can select it. You might decide, well, I can use a layer. And you can use different effects here. So you can go to Pixel, go to New Live Filter Layer, and maybe Blur. And I'm going to go with Gaussian. So Gaussian Blur, and I can apply that. And you can see then I can apply that. And obviously the result then will modify slightly the end result, especially with like the threshold one, because you've got a bit of blur there. It does create a slight variation of that. So you can add in between. You've got this now effect with Gaussian blur. You've still got all those adjustments above, which of course at any point you might decide, you know what, I don't want the X to be modified. I can always just clear it like that. Just go over here or select it and delete it if you don't want it, and just remove it like that, and it's gone. So you can create some very interesting text designs, super quick and super easy, using the adjustment brush to apply different adjustments to different letters in your thing. And of course, you could have a much more complex shape and design than just this. You can also use some of the different parameters available to the adjustment brush as well. And you can see those when you've got the adjustment brush here. Down the bottom, there's various drag. There's not many. There's drag to paint adjustment, which obviously is just apply the brush stroke. And the one I've got here is threshold at the moment. So I'm just applying that to create an interesting threshold effect, maybe around there. And you can just see I can just quickly, badly, drag it around like that. Yeah, using a mouse, I preferred using Artpad and pen, but I haven't got that active at the moment. So just apply that. You'll notice down the bottom, you can also hold down this, the option, alter option. You can just see the alter option symbol there, and I'm just going to do that, and that will erase. So let's just apply it. And you can see now, as I hold it down, you can remove it like that. Now, I thought when I first started using this tool that I could manipulate it using the colour settings with white and black and grey and all that sort of stuff. It works. It does seem to work a bit, but it does seem to not do it always in a right way as far as I can see. I just found it slightly odd and hard to use. So this option is available to use if you want. So you can just modify this. And as it says here, you've also got the numeric keys to change the layer opacity, all those sort of things. But you can just change it here anyway. So you can just tweak things or tweak things here, and then just apply it again with slight difference of opacity. Now, because obviously I've changed the setting here, this opacity, if I put this down to there, you can see there it's applied there. That's the brush stroke being applied. Now the actual layer here is still set to 100%. So that is not, it's not changing with the opacity for the layer. It's changing it for the application of the brush, and likewise the flow as well. You can click and change that. You push that up to the max. Let's push this up to the max and now apply it. And you can see then as you apply that, you can change it. Obviously here you've got numeric keys to modify that as well. Must admit, most of the time I never do that. I will just change it here, but you can do that if you want to change it, and a much quicker way of doing it, I guess. But you can change again the size, and then you got these options, and again, alter option just to again delete it. So that's the parameters. There's not anything. There's also hold while brushing to stop auto adjustment dialog. Hold while brushing to, okay, so hold that down. Oh, okay. It doesn't appear if you hold down the alter that doesn't. But as soon as you don't hold it, I think that's slightly odd. But anyway, but that's a feature of it. You may want to investigate if that dialogue starts to slightly annoy. And that, I think, is a fair run through. Hopefully, maybe there's some other things, the adjustment that you know of. Please let me know in the comments. I mean, it's really great to learn some more things about the adjustments, and maybe other things you do or don't like. I think certain points I've noticed on the web that people have been talking about adjustments. They've been saying they would have preferred if it had just been done as a normal mask below, and you could sort of manipulate that instead of having it like this. I don't know. I mean, I don't have too much of a problem with that, but it's fine for me. But I guess if you want it in a particular way, then maybe that would have been a better way. But please put in the comments if you feel that way as well. It's one of those things that I couldn't give a particularly for or against opinion on that. But I find the adjustment brush is potentially useful for some things, and it's basically doing what was available before. You can just use masks and just do adjustments exactly the same as you probably did with Affinity Photo 1 and 2. So you could do it before. It's just now they've got a brush tool. Only problem I have slightly is now the tools panel starts to get very heavy with lots of brushes, which is why I've created this one. I created a studio, which is a brush studio one, where it's got all just basically brushes. So if I want to do brush work, I just go to the brushes studio, and it's just got brushes that I use a lot, and it declutters them. So it sort of makes it more obvious which ones I'm selecting, which ones I'm going to be using, because I always find when I get these, you get here, obviously this complete list, you think, oh, adjustment brush, why is the burn and dodge under there and not somewhere else? It is always slightly, after a while you do remember them, but sometimes you just think, there's a lot of brushes in Affinity version 3. So any thoughts, please put in the comments below. Bye.